Okay, hello and welcome to Her Renewed Mind. I'm so glad you're here. And this is, if I'm not mistaken, episode 103. But if I'm incorrect, it will be correct in the title. But I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so excited to have a dear sis who I've known for a long time. We may talk about that. Dr. Phyllis Clark on the podcast. Dr. Phyllis, welcome to Her Renewed Mind.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here and be in this space to just to speak about whatever we're supposed to put out in the atmosphere today. So thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. It's going to be good, you guys. And I say this, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. If you're able to keep your notebook close, right, and capture the awesome nuggets that Dr. Phyllis is going to share that's going to help propel you forward in your life. I've known Dr. Phyllis for a while, and I'm trying to think. Well, she is a higher educational professional. And so what I remember is that I would always hear your name. And I don't know if I had started working at U of L yet, Dr. Phyllis, but I would hear your name about being for students. Like I would hear students say, you need to go see Dr. Phyllis. And
Well,
I'm
I wasn't Dr. then.
okay, well,
Miss P. Miss P is what they called me back in that day.
but today she's Dr. Phyllis. So she was always doctor. She just didn't have the title yet, y'all. Okay, so that's why it was so easy for me to just say that. But yeah, and I worked in higher ed as well, so I know our paths crossed probably at college fairs
Yeah.
and me being on campus and bringing students to campus. But I just always saw you as someone full of joy and just your heart to help students was evident, and just such a grace about you, just a grace. I was just like, she is so sweet. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. I'm so glad that we are still connected and now get to connect in this way for you to share with our amazing viewers and listeners. So, man, I love to talk, but I need to stop talking because Dr. P, Dr. Phyllis, I want you to share more about who you are and what you do.
Okay, great. How much time do I?
I know, not for the
Um,
whole time, no.
You know what? I'm just so blessed to be where I am right now. I think what I'll do, I'm going to reverse engineer this. And I am in a space right now where I decided to take time for myself. One day I saw something about a nap ministry, and I chuckled and I high-fived it and I did all the things to celebrate that notion. And here a year or two later, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna join the nap ministry. And so what that meant for me is to pause, to reset, recharge, reframe, restructure, redo all the things. And I did that. And so 90 days ago, maybe 100 days now, I took a beat. I took a pause for my health. I took a pause. I had just lost a parent. I had just finished 7 years and 228 days of completing a degree that I aspired for. And I just needed a break. And so with the blessings of my family, even my mother and some super close confidants, I decided to go that route. And so that's what I've been doing the past 100 or so days. And now I'm emerging from, like, not necessarily a slumber, but from this a recharging space, right? I have been in the education sector for, I can't even believe I'm saying this number, but 30 some years. And I'm like, okay, once I wanted to just figure out what my time and space, what have I traversed? Because I wouldn't always give myself enough credit, and you'll hear about that in a little bit more. But I started teaching violin to young students even in the 11th grade. I started as an entrepreneur, but so I'm giving myself credit for being an educator even before I graduated high school.
Oh my
But
goodness.
officially, I taught orchestra. I majored in music. I'm a violinist. I still am. And yes, yes, got that scholarship. The
Come on,
University
come
of
on.
State University of Arkansas, actually, in Fayetteville. Then I found my way to the University of Louisville for graduate school. And I've been in higher ed since. So I taught orchestra for the 5 years in Jefferson County, and then crossed over to higher ed. And that's where I've been ever since. And I love this. And I think it goes back to me watching my mother as a non-traditional student, let's just say an adult learner,
Yeah.
traverse this whole space, to finish her master's and her bachelor's. I'm 15 watching all this happen, and she had some really remarkable milestones. And, I even learned all my Greek letters, all my Greek alphabet from my mom because she pledged an organization and she had to learn that stuff and she used me as her sounding board. But, fun times, right? But I loved how she was so involved in the aspect of learning, right? And the discipline of being engaged in that way. And so once I told her, I said, you know what? I think I want to be a dean. Girl, didn't know nothing about being a dean. I just knew some of the words and phrases she was using and how happy and joyful she was about being on a college campus, especially at an HBCU. So,
She,
but yeah,
where
yeah.
did your mom go,
So,
Dr. Phyllis?
yes.
Sorry, where did your mom go to school?
Oh, University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. Shout
yeah,
out to
that
the
is,
HBCUs.
yes, that's right. Yes. And so what I'm doing now is I'm doing entrepreneurship. And
Mhm.
so I did pause a job that I love working, for the higher ed council. We know it, our council here in Frankfurt, CPE, Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education. So long name, but I just like saying the higher ed council. And an amazing 3 years spent there, and I learned so much. And I was able to take, that experience and push it into what I'm doing now, which is entrepreneurship, where I focus on women and girls and just helping them to brand their brilliance and understand about not just seeing your vision and having a vision, but honestly getting to it,
Yeah,
you know, and also making sure that my research around imposter syndrome is, at every level involved in what I'm doing, coaching, teaching, training, speaking, presenting, whatever it is that I'm called to do around that, I'm doing it.
yeah. Oh my, I love it. I love
Thank
it so
you.
much. Thank you. I'm excited. And anytime I interview somebody, I'm like, it's for my amazing listeners and viewers, but it's also for me too. So I remember because I do follow you on social media, and I remember if I'm not, I remember you posting, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm like, how would I know this? About you taking the 90 days, you know, to reset, to recharge. And I'm like, my insides just started to like leap, right? But it's a phrase that I've heard before. My baby started leaping. That is brilliant. And and I want to know, and I'm kind of taking a different direction because
Go
I
ahead.
know the response that I had just by reading that. And of course, I was like, okay, I may not be able to do 90 days, but how can I continue? Because I have a whole testimony about learning to rest
Yes, yes.
and how that happened in my life. And for me, my kind of big moment was in 2019. And then that merged into, of course, we know quarantine, I call it quarantine season in 2020
Mhm.
and all of that there. So when I saw that post, I'm like, it was just that reminder like, okay, you might not be able to take 90 days, Candice, but be intentional about finding periods of time to rest and figuring out what that looks like for you because your rest time is going to be different from somebody else's.
Yeah.
So I guess how did you come to that decision? Why 90 days? And
Mhm.
so I'm actually maybe giving you three questions in one. And then what was the response from people like who saw you, and knew that you were doing that? Because I mean, as women, we
Mhm.
do and try to do all the things. So I know that
Yes.
what you're going to share, you're talking directly to the ladies that are listening and watching.
Yeah. So when my body first started to talk to me about this, it wasn't 90 days ago. It wasn't 100 days ago. It was probably a year and a half ago.
Um,
And then it really hit home for me when my father passed away in March. And so I had conversations with my father even after his transition, and we would talk probably every hour the first, few months of after his transition, because I'm like, Daddy, what to do. I felt like I had this fork in the road that I had to really pay attention to. And again, coming off of 7 years and 228 days. Well, it wasn't 228 by then. It was a little bit less than that because I still had to finish, right? Because this happened 2 months prior to my finishing. And I'm just like, should I just pause? What should I do?
And
And, and I
finishing your degree. Your father passed.
exactly, yes, yes, to finish a degree. And I looked at his picture and I had written his obituary. I put all of the things together for that and supporting my mother. I'm an only child. And so I went to stay with my mom for a while around that same time, 2 or 3 weeks. And we had his memorial and we did, everything. And I'm talking to him every day, every hour, and we're thinking, and I just heard something come over me. Um, he had been calling me not doctor, but doctor. You know how your daddy could play with your name and your
Yes.
words and your nickname?
DOCTAH, I think that's how.
Listen, doctor,
Doctor.
Dr. Clark, Dr. Clark, Dr. But I have all of these little funny names. And, since day one, and and his spirit just told me, you gotta finish this. You don't need another year. You don't need even another semester. You are where you are because of all the things that you've already done. You can rest after. Okay. So I'm like, all right, Daddy, me and you help me get to this point and you're gonna help me get over it. And so I'm sitting still at my mom's house, right? Getting into some of the intense writing. And so I put my dad's picture, it's in a frame by this time, a really big frame. And he's sitting there right next to me, right? And every time I get a paragraph written, I'm like, Daddy, look, so we work together to finish this thing, I'm telling you. And I took his advice and I decided to make a decision for myself because I knew there's a whole reason as to why I wanted to get my degree. It took me 10 years to even make the decision to do it, right? And I felt like I'm going to get to this finish line so that I can get back out here and serve in a completely different capacity, not knowing really that it was going to be 100% entrepreneurship at the time. I'm trying to merge and all the things and do this together, but something else still came over me. And I was excited to be working for the Higher Ed Council, talking to all of my colleagues and partners across the state of Kentucky around student success.
Right.
Like, who don't want to do that? You
That's a
know?
whole other episode, Dr. Phyllis. I was thinking about that yesterday in preparation. I'm like, God literally elevated you, like all the experience that you had. And I didn't realize you worked at JCPS until you just said you taught, orchestra.
Yeah.
But like from the school system to the collegiate level, right?
Yeah.
All of that
Yeah.
you were following students. And then again at Simmons, and then on a larger scale to be able to impact even more. Like
Yeah.
that's just so powerful to me.
Woo! And so, and like this full circle moment, came up and I said, entrepreneurship feels like the next right thing that's been calling me because I actually started, my business in 2009. In January 2009, I was connected with the Professional Woman Network because my superiors at the University of Louisville at that time wanted me to do more, for myself by way of professional development. I was kind of pushed off the ledge. I'm like, okay. And that's probably because I was looking for more,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't even know it. And so,
They saw it in you. They saw it in you. Yeah.
yes, yes. And so I decided to, I said yes. And so because I said yes, I started growing my community and learning and connecting with other women. That's really where all things changed for me.
Yeah.
And so I started that organization in 2009. It's had some other iterations, but the work and the mission has been the same. helping to elevate women and girls.
Yeah.
And I knew because of the course of my life, inside of all that, I had been wanting to do the same. Like, how do I brand my brilliance? How do I stay the course? How do I understand my own self-awareness? How do I know where my strengths lie? And how do I fill in my gaps? How do I, all these questions for me, I'm like, I know it's some more people out here that's thinking and questioning all of these same things. But I had a hard time doing some of that because I wasn't trusting myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't necessarily understanding my purpose at the time either. And so it slowed me down. And I feel like that is what, when I started really coming to understand that I was slowing my own self down. There was some self-sabotage there. There was some trepidation. There was all these other feelings. Now, look, on the outside looking in, you'd be
Right.
like, oh, she's there, she's here, she's supported, she's doing all of these things. But guess what? I don't know if I fully understood what was going on. I was having this battle, this internal battle. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of us are going through some of these things and they're feeling like it's us. It's me thinking with this whole crazy deficit mindset. So what I'm out here trying to do now is helping people to understand what their assets are
Yeah.
and how to amplify those and strengthen those. And at the same time, you can, pull in and upgrade and up level some other things about yourself, but you got to be self-aware,
Yes.
and imposter syndrome tells us you not to do none of that. It tells us to play small.
Mm.
It tells us to, forget about all of these things that you've been called to do because you ain't gonna know how to do it.
Right.
It's just this little voice. But what I found out was that that's not even me.
Come on.
That is not me. And I'm not subject to listen to that. And even when it comes up and when it comes around, or I start to experience imposter feelings, then there are some things that I can do to
Yeah.
shut that stuff down.
Yes.
Have
Yes.
time to fight. I don't have time to fight. I don't have time to battle
Mm.
with it because it ain't me,
Yeah.
right?
So
But
good.
what I do have time to do is to strengthen myself in these moments. And that's why I chose to study and research imposter syndrome. And now listening to some new thought leadership around this.
Yeah.
And what I found in all of this, I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop and let you get to
No,
another.
you.
But what
No,
I
you
found
good.
was it's all around our competency distortions.
Mm.
So the thought leader and the researcher that I'm listening to and learning from now, even
Mm.
beyond the PhD, is around us thinking differently about what we bring to the table.
So good.
And a lot of times it's twisted and it's upside down, it's distorted,
Yeah.
So I love that phrase that she uses. And I'm talking about Dr. Valerie Young. So if anybody out there is interested in learning more about this from the scholarly side, Dr. Valerie Young is your woman.
Love
Yeah.
it. Love it.
Yes,
Love
yes.
it. Love it.
And there's some others too. And if we get to those questions, you want me to circle back and I can talk about some of the other folks that are instrumental in this type of conversation.
Okay. That's, oh my
Uh,
goodness, Dr. P.
I know that was a lot.
No, no, no. No, I'm like, there's so many questions that are coming to my mind because I resonate exactly with what you're saying. And I
Woo.
do want you to share, well,
Okay.
let me not ask that because I'm going to ask that in a little bit. Hopefully, I remember
Okay.
to do that. So I want to get back to the 90-day rest. And
Okay.
because I think,
Come on.
I just know I want to press in because I just really believe that along with women who we care about, right? And girls too. I think in thinking about imposter syndrome and negative thoughts that may come that we feed into, I think taking time to rest will help us refocus and lean into the strength and be able to have the time, right? And clear our heads
Come on.
to those assets. I'm taking notes on you, Dr. P, right? I got my notebook too. And I love how you talked about, amplifying your assets. So many times I can amplify the deficits,
Ooh.
right? Because I want to fix. I want to, oh, that's something that somebody pointed out, or I pointed out within myself. I need this. And this actually happened to me yesterday, Dr. Phyllis. So this is
Mm.
real time. So, I think what I'm trying to ask is what made you say, okay, I'm going to take this 90-day rest?
Mhm.
And do you think that it helped you? And I think I know the answer to this. Just clear your mind and reset your mind around amplifying your own assets as you move forward into this new venture of entrepreneurship.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I don't even think I got close to that in the other response
That's
in the
okay.
other
That's
response. So
fine.
let me get to it. Let me get to
Yeah.
it. So yeah, so when I made so 2024 was heavy. There were some celebratory things in there, right? And then of course there was um mm, me losing my father. And so all of those things kept wrapped up together, just kind of made me pause, just
Mm-hmm.
made me pause. And so once I got to a point where I had actually written a letter, right? I wrote my resignation letter and I talked to my superior about it and had blessings there. I wanted to do things right. So I didn't just quit. Gave a 30-day notice. And so it gave me time to do things in a very professional way, right? And and then I was also thinking about my grandmothers. I was thinking about my mother. I was thinking about my grandmothers. I was going through family histories. I had just read all of these incredible things and looking through family history regarding my father and putting words and things together for him. And, again, I spent almost a month at home with my mother, reading and thinking and talking and looking at material and collateral. And when I started seeing that my grandmothers, let me tell you about my great grandmother or my great great grandmother. Come on, all these folks were entrepreneurs in their own way. My great great, something else to be said for her, but everybody else, after her, and so I started making these connections and started to really focus on myself and becoming more self-aware. And I'm like, you know what? If I don't think about myself in this way, who is? Who is? I am getting older. I have older children now, young adults who are thinking for themselves and having opinions about things. I'm in the very best place. My husband has supported me in so many different ways. I need nothing. I have everything I need to be able to do this. So why am I fearful?
Yeah.
Right?
Ooh.
Why am I letting the fear creep in? I'm like, you know what, fear? It's gonna be me and you.
Mm.
But to get to a place where it could be me and the fear, I
Mhm.
had to step out. I had to, push the 9 to 5 in a parking lot for a second. So a lot of things have been coming up over these past 100 days. It ain't just me sitting on a couch.
Mhm.
Okay. It's me really dealing with myself. So some days have been super emotional. I had therapy for the first time over the course of several weeks
Mhm.
during this time period because I'm really trying to move into a new space.
Yeah.
Um, Wow. Ooh. Okay. Sorry, you're making me think about you sit me back into that early 100 days there where I was, really dealing.
Yeah.
Um, but as I, celebrate my family and think about my grandmothers and mother who have come before me and did all of this work. And then I'm like, for such a time as this, I may not be able to see everything, but I know in my heart everything is there.
Yeah.
So who do I need to bring into my space, or what other spaces do I need to get involved in? And then some of the pieces just started to fall into place. I think we need to spend time really digging into who we are
So good.
and what we are called to do. I mean, I don't mean that in a cliche way.
Oh.
Sometimes I feel like we pretend to do those things, and it's really cool and legit and credible to say all of that. But how does that manifest? Well, for me, I just had to take a hard stop.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we still got to live, right? I didn't want my family to be like all of a sudden, "Ooh, there's one income going, So I have been saving up.
That's
I've
come
been
on.
saving up.
Yes.
And so I knew that I was going to be able to get a 3 month stretch,
Yeah. So
or
good.
a 4 month or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah. So my family has been fine financially if people, are wondering about that too, just to be fully transparent.
No, I
And
love it.
I am, and I'm just so, so glad that I was able to think about this not 100 days ago, but this all started maybe 2 to 3 years ago.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I love it. And thank you for adding that practical nugget about you could
Mhm.
do that. You could take that pause for, 90 plus days because of also saving financially. And that's why I mentioned like not everybody could do 90
Mhm.
days, but I believe there we sometimes we say, I don't have enough hours in the day. I don't know if you've ever said that. I'm sure I've said that before, but I
Oh
thank
yeah.
God because my mind's renewed around like, and you just said it, Dr. Phyllis, you have everything that you need. That includes time if we use it wisely.
Yes.
So I'm also growing in that area in terms of being intentional about how I spend the day, 24 hours.
Mhm.
Like, am
Mhm.
I literally getting enough rest? Am I getting like Candice, you need about 8, right? And you also know you're best in the morning.
Yes.
Anytime you start to get sleepy, so don't try, you can't try to burn the midnight oil like you used
Yeah.
to do when you were in college 25 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Let
You know?
me tell you, one of the things in the last 3 years working with my beautiful team over at the council,
Yeah.
we always understood pace,
Ah,
right? So there are 3 or 4 of us on the student success team. It was one of the first of its kind in Kentucky, and we were all tapped
you
to
all are crown
to
prince.
bring this right, right. Dr. Lily Manson McKinley and Dr. Beth Collins, we kind of started this thing, and now there are others on the team that are amazing and taking this work to the next level. Um, but the thing about we all understood our pace and how we had to work differently
Yeah.
to get our objectives taken care of. And my pace was such that, after I do something like facilitating a community of practice, well, you know what? I'm going to take a beat because I need to decompress about all the things that and all the conversations that had just taken place, right? So I'm taking mental notes. I'm thinking about the certain people who had ideas and recommendations. I just don't push myself into the very next thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think as we live our lives, we need to slow it down just a little bit or understand how you need to operate, right? So that you can remain fueled and charged. Yeah, I don't move from thing to thing. I just don't do it anymore. And sometimes even the rest and the relaxation or whatever it is that you need, that is a whole nother mechanism to help you live, to help you be stronger, to help you get prepared for whatever the next thing is, even if it's washing dishes. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, oh my gosh, one of my early coaches, Brendan Burchard, he's like, we have to generate, we're like power plant, we got to generate this energy that we have to have. And so, and of course, I'm thinking about myself as a Black woman who used to get stressed really easily and who was told to even leave a job because of the stress, some of the stress, over the course of my career. And, so I'm thinking about my health and I'm thinking about the way and the level in which I can contribute to different things. I don't care what the task is, right? We're still the conduit through which all the energy has to move. And I used to love telling that to college students too, because I'm like, y'all forget, you the one that's got to do this work. You the one that's got to write this paper, you know? Um, but yeah, so pace, I think, is really important and understanding yours. And the last thing about this I'll say is that sometimes we can fall into these traps of looking at other people's pace, right? And comparing ourselves to what they're doing and how they're doing and how quickly they're moving and the results that they're getting, forgetting all about ourselves and who we are. So, I'm all about me.
Yeah.
That is not a selfish thing because
No.
I need to know about me in order to help support and do the things that I've been called to do for others.
Um,
So, hey.
Listen, we're gonna pass the collection plate right now, you guys, because that right there.
Girl.
No, you said a whole word. Well, you have been since we hit record. So So good, Dr. B. I tell all my guests, we have a plan, but the plan could go another way as it needs to. Okay, Holy Spirit has permission. Okay,
Yes, I love that.
talk about Clark Training and Consulting and Hayes' enterprise and the work that you're doing. And you've been saying it like your heart is for women and for girls. And I have written down, I don't know if you call it your mission statement, but in what you sent me, um, you help women and girls realize their full potential and drive transformational change in their companies, communities, and beyond. And so I'd love to know, how did you or are you realizing your own full potential to be able, and you've sprinkled that in all along in our conversation, to then be able to pour that into the women, the organization, the girls that you are working with and will be working with and have, because you've been doing it all along.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I guess the thing about me right now is because I wanted to, just stop and recenter and understand how I wanted to move in the community better, whether it's virtual or in person. I needed to think about how I wanted to shape things, how I wanted to be more visible in these spaces. And so part of my preparation inside of that 100 days, if you will, is to think about, is to really think about that and to strategically plan and to be more intentional with my connections, right? Or community building and some of the other things. So yeah, so while I've been doing this all along, it has felt just a little, I mean, I just want to be transparent here. It's felt a little disjunct, you
Okay.
know, and so I wanted to create a more cohesive container and a space where I could move the way that I really wanted to. And that's why I decided to add training and consulting, because I do all the things, but for people to understand more of that about me, I have to frame things in a way where they can understand,
Yes.
even when I'm not, maybe they just see a post. And so um, it's been really interesting because I think visibility
Yeah.
is also helpful in terms of me repackaging and shelving some things, bringing out some new ones to help people understand how I can help with transformation in their organizations or just, with them as an individual. So separating the two, training and consulting is really for higher education communities. Girl, I can't leave that. I cannot leave that. I will be in higher ed the rest of my life, however it will have me. And so I'm actually teaching right now. Part of that, I'm an educator, and I'm teaching at Simmons right now. I'm doing one course, and guess what it's for? I love it so much. It's for the Second Chance Pell program. And so I am working with women who are leveling up, whether incarcerated or, they are still allowed in this program. And Simmons and one other community college in Kentucky are the only two schools right now involved in work like this. And when I got the yes for that, I'm like, yes, I will be there. And so, in fact, I was just talking to a couple of students before we hopped on. Um, but teaching, training, consulting, that aspect of the work sits there. And then let me tell you, Hey Sis Enterprises, that was born because my youngest daughter, is like, Mom, you say you call everybody sis. And I'm like, you know what? I do, because I see them. I want my sister on the other side of me to know that I see her and I respect her and I love her. And so I'm just sissing all day.
We receive
And
it, sis. We receive it on behalf of the sisters and sisters out there.
And girl, thank you. And so I'm like, hey, sister, that is my space for the way that I want to help women brand their brilliance. And so I have all types of things. Now, this 100 days has helped me to see that I can't be sitting in isolation while I'm thinking about these things and building up new things. And that was part of my problem along these years. And so now I have people who I outsource to help me, bring things to life, like a website, for instance, right? And like just thinking about strategic planning and all of that. And so I was going to tell you earlier, um, we work in higher ed, so we know what strategic plans are and how to do all of that.
Yep.
And, if these institutions and corporations can have all of these beautiful plans and understand the level of productivity that goes into it, well, so can we. So can we. And that's one of the things that I do is to help women understand. You see, you got your vision, you know what you're doing, but let's reverse engineer some stuff and figure out how to create high impact practices, right? And behaviors to help you get to that.
Yeah.
So you ain't got to do like I did a long time ago and just see all of these beautiful things in your head without, making it come to life and bringing it to fruition. So yeah, so Hey Sis Enterprises, that's for the way that I work with women in business and education.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And I'll make sure to put your contact information in the show notes because I believe that
You. Yes,
women or,
thank you.
or who for themselves individually or with the organization want you to come in and train.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank
Oh
you
yeah.
so
Oh,
much.
yeah. This is what this space is about as well. I am a connector and I want to
Yes.
connect my listeners, my sis
Mhm.
out there, sisters
Yes.
out there to other women who can help them bring their dream and their vision to life. Because we
Yes.
need them. We
Yes.
need them, need their solutions.
Yes.
Make-
I heard Lovey, do you follow Lovey?
I don't, but I see posts
Okay.
from time to time, but I don't follow directly.
Okay. Well, I saw
Okay.
she said something on LinkedIn or Insta is about, don't forget that you are the solution. So as long as you're sitting back thinking, trying to figure some stuff out, taking 3 and 4 years to activate this and that, somebody waiting on you. Somebody's losing. Somebody's falling apart. Somebody's not getting it done because you are sitting over here not realizing that you are their solution. And so I just want all of us to think like that too. If you have this on your heart and you know that this is something that needs to be out there, do it, sis. You ain't got to see the second step. You ain't got to see the third step or the 10th, but start to activate. And I was slow. I was so slow in this space that it was making me sick. It was tearing me apart. And so I'm like, I don't have to have all the things on the paper. It's just, whew. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I had to put
No, no,
that.
that was good because that's perfect to come back to talking about imposter syndrome because I mean,
Okay.
is like you've walked through it. I think if we
Whew.
all kind of had understanding of what it is, and you talked about
Okay.
it a little bit earlier, we can say we've had moments, we've had pieces that whether we call it imposter syndrome or not, right? I feel
Mhm.
like it's a newer term, at least for me, in the
Mhm.
past few years that I've seen um, kind of the professional space, I would say. So I guess if someone's hearing this
Mhm.
phrase, this language for the first time, how would you define imposter syndrome? And then what are some practical things?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a one, two, three, but just some things that maybe have been helpful to you that are helpful to the women you coach, or that you would say, here's
Mhm.
how we can move past that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So now this is my jam
I
now.
know. Listen,
And
let's go.
what's interesting about it for me is that I haven't closed the book on learning about it. And
Hmm.
so I have several thought leaders and scholars that I now follow around some new research.
Cut you off because I was supposed to say this earlier, and
Uh-huh.
you are one of those thought leaders. Okay, continue.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, So, imposter syndrome, as it's described or defined now in the literature, it's a psychological pattern or way of believing about something about you, regardless of the evidence to the contrary, right? You still, in certain situations or experiences, feel like a fraud, or that in some cases you're not worthy, of being there. Again, this goes back to self-belief.
Mhm.
And so, which is why I've had to do a presentation on myself from self-doubt to self-belief. And it's again, it's a pattern. And so when you think about patterns, it happens over the course of time in certain situations, okay, or in certain experiences. 70% of people experience imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon. Syndrome, I don't really like syndrome, just like Dr. Valerie talks about, because it associates with like a disorder or a diagnosis. It's not, you know, it's not. It's just a way that you believe yourself to be in certain situations, and you just don't give yourself enough credit. And then self-esteem, self-confidence, like so many other things start to drill down on you and keep you playing small. And so that's why it'll take you 10 years to make a decision about something, you know? And so what I the it's so interesting because I think I was doing some research on self-authorship and how to write your life. And this was important to me because I was coaching lots of students at the University of Louisville, and I'm always looking for new research and new tech tools and techniques. So, as a coach, you're not a therapist. I'm a coach. So, I'm taking people from where they are to where they want to be. And I think I've really done that my whole life. But once I got into the career, I really wanted to get into the skill and the tools and all of these things from a practitioner standpoint. What I have loved learning about the imposter syndrome is that it manifests differently for different people in different situations. And so it used to be that it was like, oh, women only experience that. No. Men experience it too, men and boys. And a lot of this goes back to some triggers and things that we may have experienced in our younger years. And only point that out is there's some differences, but I only point that out because the seminal study around imposter syndrome starts in the late 70s. The term was first coined back then. Um, and so Clance and Adams were the two therapists who had this study. The only thing about the study was that it included Black women. It only included white women. It was about 150 of them. It was not at the height of the feminist waves, but it was kind of during the center of all of that. And so there were 150 women, and they all felt ridiculous about themselves, but they all had degrees. They were making certain incomes. They all had these other accolades, but they all felt like frauds.
Hmm.
And I think that was one of the components of the study. Now there's an actual instrument that can measure how you feel about yourself in whether or not you have imposter feelings. And you feel like you have a little bit when I get in this situation, or a lot, or I just stay in this imposter space. And so when I took it, I was kind of high up there. And I decided I wanted to do something about it. And so I switched my research focus maybe a month or two into my PhD studies in 2016. And that's where I lived for the next seven years and 228 days. So I have loved exploring this, and of course getting into my study around it. Um, but now it manifests. This is the other part of your question. It shows up. Some of these behaviors, there are four classic behaviors, and we're all going to know all of these. But now, what I want you to do is to associate it potentially to an imposter feeling or a thought, and I want you to separate it from yourself. And that is the one thing out of my study that I found that these women wanted to do. They wanted to understand what it was and how it manifested so that they can deal with it,
Yeah.
as when they experienced it. Okay. And so these four classic behaviors are, now you know all about the anxiety part, right? Where the fear and the distractions and all of these other, the laundry list of anxieties.
Yeah.
And that can turn up a whole nother level of ways that we think about ourselves or things that we do or don't do as a result of those anxieties. And we might need some therapy around that, right? The second one is this one, this one. Mm-mm-mm is around hard work. It shows up as hard work
Okay.
because you get into a cycle of hard work. But people are like, hard work is good. I worked hard all my life. I'm working hard now, doing all. But when you start to overcompensate, for
Yeah.
certain things, and you just keep doing the thing until you get a desired result that never comes, or it comes and then you got to get into the cycle again. Why? Because you're looking external of yourself, because you've internalized some negative stuff that you have to look external of yourself to get the goods.
Mhm.
And then what happens once you get the goods? You got to start all over again. So it becomes this overcompensation cycle that is ridiculous, and it causes a lot of stress, and it yields nothing but heartache and hardship. I mean, there's some stories out there you would not believe. And so that's one that I really try to elevate when I get in these conversations. The other one is what I used to operate around right around middle school. I used to try to um, be charismatic in my classes that I didn't think I would do well in. Because if I was friends with the teacher, guess what? I got a friend and he's probably going to help me out, or
Yeah.
she's probably, so masking in that way, which moves into this other space around being authentic. That's the fourth behavior. And that was me right around elementary school, because I had my little story is around being what I self-entitled a few years ago, um, a sidekick bully. And I've told this story a lot, but being a sidekick bully means, oh, I hang with the bullies. I don't do the bullies' work, but I support them in what they're doing. So I never really get in trouble, and my parents never really get a call from the school.
Mhm.
But I have some friends that I kind of hang around. Well, it was one in particular, or two in particular, that I just laugh at their jokes or I help them make fun of someone. And so I did that from fifth grade, no, fourth grade, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. All of that changed when I ran into somebody where I was first challenged to become a bully, right? Because again, it's me. I wanted some friends. I didn't think that anybody would like me because of my fat face, my round face. That's where it started. That was my trigger all those years ago that stuck with me for so long. And that's what made me want to be invisible. I'm like, nobody really wants to see me, or I don't want to be out front, or I don't want to be, because this little boy ran up to me and said, Phyllis, you got a fat face, and made a whole song out of it.
Mhm.
And I'm 6. And I'm like, oh my God, so now as a little girl, I'm running around. So I'm like, but I want some friends. And so here we come in fourth grade. And then I start all of that heinous stuff until I am challenged. And
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, I think this might be fun. And then I bullied the wrong person. And so what happened was I was challenged to dunk a boy's head in the water fountain. And so we were in orchestra rehearsal, and it was one of the youth groups in the community. And we were after school, and it was some of the top kids and music and all this. But I showed my butt. And so I was challenged, and I said, okay, I'll do it. And I walked up behind him at the water fountain. He was on a break, and I pushed his head deep into the water fountain. He had his instrument and everything. Glasses came up, water running, all the things. But
Mhm.
he turned around. I was ready for him to retaliate, and I was trying to run away and laugh with my friend. And he turned around to me and he looked at me with just a very stoic face and said, "You don't have to do what she is telling you to do." We're 14 at this point. And he tells me that. I stop and stare, and he just walks away. And I just kind of walk, just watch him walk away.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, he might be right about this. Because I knew that was a bad thing to do. And I didn't, I don't know. To this day, I still think about that mess. But the thing about it was he challenged me to think differently about myself. That whole peer-to-peer thing,
Yeah.
ooh, that was something else. But let me tell you, I didn't want to stop talking to him. I wanted to know more about why he chose to tell me that.
Mhm.
What made him not retaliate. That's the type of thing I'm thinking about at 14. But even here at my age now, I still think about it and I ask him. And yes, I know that boy because I married him. We've been married for 30 some years now. And let that one sink in. So that's a whole nother book. So I didn't let him get away. I
It-
kept I kept talking, kept asking questions.
oh my, and he said, "Well, I got some more to share."
Yes, but he was like, even when we had this conversation, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago was when I first asked him, or I don't know, maybe longer than that. I'm like, why didn't you like retaliate or do? He's like, because I knew your heart. I knew you. I knew that wasn't you.
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't you. So the best thing that he could give me in that moment was to tell me to quit.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so we have built a beautiful life together. But back to imposter. I'm sorry, I had to
That was
because that's my
precious.
story. That is my story inside of the
Yeah.
whole wave of imposter thinking. And sometimes we don't realize that what we're experiencing and these decisions we're making in the moment goes back 40 years,
Yeah.
or even 50. You just never
Yeah.
know. So the study was interesting. And so people can read that seminal study. It's out there. There are some new studies though
Mhm.
around what people are now thinking around imposter phenomenon because that's it. It is a phenomena. And I just want to create some awareness. I want to create an anti-imposterism movement, just so because the thing about it, it's not you. You're not an imposter. It's not you. It's an experience that you're having. If that's the best
Woo!
thing that you can get out of any of this that I'm saying, it's an experience. So if you are having an experience, what can you do? You can change it up. You can have a tool or technique in your back pocket.
Mhm.
And for me, I personify whatever that experience is. I personify the imposter feeling and I tell it, I got this.
Mhm.
And so, like, even just being, in your presence right now and talking and saying these things and being vulnerable, there's something on my shoulder, probably telling me, "Girl, you're gonna mess up. So it's all those little voices that try to trick you and help you think yourself into believing that this is not going to work,
Yeah.
that you're going to fall short, that I mean, is it just like the enemy all the time? That
Mm-mm.
wants to try to, yeah, to get us to play small or not believe in ourselves or whatever the
Yeah.
experience is.
Yeah.
Look, I used to not want to sit on the front row because I had a scalp injury, right? And then I want people looking at my head. And
Mhm.
I don't even think I've said this before. Maybe I have in a very smaller setting, but you got to put this out and people are going to hear. But
Yeah.
look, and so I never wanted to sit on the front, but I'm like, why?
Mhm.
Why? No, nobody's paying attention to me like that. And if they are, whatever. So what? I need to sit on the front row to do this particular thing at this particular time, you know? And so I just started to reframe in the moment, in the moment. And sometimes if I need help, that's where our supports come in.
Yeah.
That's where I might, tell my husband something. I feel an imposter feeling coming up. This is what it is. And can you help me through it for 2 seconds?
So,
Something like that. But yes, so the list goes on. And for those listeners out there who are looking to understand more about, well, where do I fit on this continuum? I advise them not to just say, I'm an imposter. No, don't label yourself. You might say, I have imposter feelings during this experience.
good.
But then you can also, there's a measurement out there that you can answer some questions to and understand more about where you are
Yeah.
on that slope. And then start to understand some of the tools and techniques that you can just, utilize at a moment's notice.
So good.
Yeah, because it all goes back to behaviors and the
Yeah.
way you want to behave or not in
Yeah.
certain situations. Yeah.
It's so
You
good.
know,
And
you know what the number one fear is, right?
what's the number one?
It's public speaking. And so for people, whether you're in class about to give a presentation or you know, it's almost like you have to put yourself in a situation,
Mhm.
right? You know where I'm going with
Yeah.
this
Yes, I
to get beyond, whatever it is that is trying to trap or
yeah.
stop you. So I do a lot more of that too.
That's
Mhm.
so good. Yeah, I remember, and I know it was God that just gave me this thought, like,
Mhm.
okay, Candice, in order to get over that, you're gonna have to do the opposite of what you want to do, right? Because I can retreat Like, I want to not deal with it. I want to just ignore it. It's like, okay, but like you want to get through it and get over it and get past it. So that means you're gonna have to, or need
Mhm.
to. And it's step by step. And I love what you said. I think this is so key as well. I want to highlight that you said, you may ask your husband or maybe a close confidant. I know you talked about doing therapy. When those feelings
Yeah.
arise and you're like, I need to just talk it over, even if it's for 2 seconds, maybe a little bit longer than that. But, just to, I think it's big to know like that you're not alone. There's somebody there that can help you process because, and I can speak about me, I can be in my head. So I'm not seeing or giving myself enough credit. So somebody else
Yes.
on the outside can say, okay, Candice, look at this, and this, and this. And it's like, oh, okay, I see now, right? You allow me to
Yes.
see a new perspective.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know how much time we got left, but I still want to
It's a
say this
few
part,
moments, but go ahead.
because what you just said is critically important because it comes down to confidence in the moment, right? That's why branding your brilliance is incredibly important for me because it's the fire inside. We got everything within us that we need to get through whatever it is that we're called. And the thing about it is, I like how Dr. Valerie puts it in terms of understanding that this is more about competency distortion. And so you trick yourself into thinking that you're not competent for this thing that you've been called to freaking do or some aspect of it. And so the more that you understand the level of competence that you have or that you need, then you deal with that in that way. And what happens when you do? Then the confidence rises. And so there is a correlation between those two. And I just want everyone to understand that it is not about some deficit, some crazy deficit or something that is faulty or flawed within us. It's not. I spent so many years thinking that it was. And so when I was asked to do a presentation on a national scale, I declined. When I was asked to elevate my business in a different way, several years ago, I shrinked didn't because I thought it was me. There was something flawed or wrong about me. And so now I'm doing everything I can to push this message out there around what imposter syndrome is and what it is not. Um, ooh, yeah, we need a part two.
We do. We absolutely do. We absolutely do.
Part.
But I think this is a great spot to just ask, how can, and I don't know, well, I ask this, is there anything that you're excited, or what are you excited about that's coming up for you
Mhm.
through whether it's consulting and training, through Hasis Enterprise,
Mhm.
that maybe people can get involved with, or that
Mhm.
you're working on?
Oh my gosh. Oh, so I've spent a lot of time thinking about how I want to reintegrate into the community, 100% as an entrepreneur. And so I'm thinking about as I kind of divide the two sections up. At one point, I thought it was wrong of me to think about this space over this space or how I wanted to work with, colleges and partner with organizations versus individuals.
Yeah.
And and it got past that. And so I'm like, I'm doing them both. I'm doing them both. And here's
Yes,
how. And so,
yes, multi-hyphenate, more than one dream. I'm rocking with it because I got this and this
yes,
and this. So yeah,
yes,
I get
yes. There are no, one of my business mentors, uh, Vanessa Collins, talks about, there are no rules. We shape our own space. We shape this life, this biz life. And as a female entrepreneur, the way we want to think about ourselves inside of this space, we do it. We do it. We don't let the world tell us how we should do it. I know there are principles and standards and all these types of things, but for the most part, I am ready to work with our higher ed partners. I've been doing that, like you said, but now I want to frame it in a new way to get in front of our students and talk about this because I know this thrives inside. IP is another little shortcut I take. IP is living and thriving in all of these academic spaces, even up to our professional schools, even more so, you know? And and then when I think about the work in terms of the coaching and the personal development, what I love about that space is, coaching is great and I love it, but I'm getting into something called thought partnership. So we have so many women out there. You just need a thinking partner. You need someone to help you to understand how to actively, strategically plan for this particular goal. And that is the level. But listen, we have to work a little faster.
Mhm.
The climate these days is calling for us to understand how to not just make decisions quickly, but how to get on the floor and help with your cause, even faster, whatever that might be. Maybe that's always been the case, but I know right now, um, there's just some things to be said for how we work together, collective action, thought partnership, thought leadership, all of those things. And so I'm working in both of those areas. And so I have clients right now. I am also booking right now. I have some things that I'm doing. So if people are looking for a guest to talk more about this particular construct IP, I would love, love, love to do that. Um, and then I'm looking for additional, collaborations. And so hopefully you and me, well, we're collaborating right now. Oh my gosh, yes.
First, right? It's not the last, but one of the first. So good. Well, thank you, Dr. Phyllis.
Yes.
And such a rich conversation. Thank you. You've helped me, just getting
Oh,
understanding around IP and feelings there that
yes.
even I can do to move through the things that try to come up. Listen, remembering who I am. And some things we're going to talk about offline, but I love, love, love how you talk about branding your brilliance and amplifying
Mm,
assets. Right?
yes.
This is something I love.
Thank
I love
you.
words and things that are punchy and relevant. Right? Because
Yeah.
I remember that, like, okay, Candice, and my sis who's listening, amplify. Take time,
Mhm.
whether it's 90 days or it's 9 minutes or 9 seconds, right? To think about the assets because you have them. You have goodness on the inside of you. You have wisdom and insight to share. And just who
Yes.
you are and how you show up in your family. So take Dr. Phyllis's advice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I neglected to mention, so I am looking at starting a community of practice and facilitating that for women in education. And so there are a lot of us out here still working on our bachelor's degrees, master's, PhDs, and there's something to be said for the camaraderie around the things that we go through
Yeah.
in getting to the end. And
Yes.
so I'm looking at establishing a membership community for that. So that is what's coming up. That's the one thing that's come up. So I'm excited. I have quite a
Oh,
few things, but that is the big thing in the fire right now.
love it. That does my heart so much joy, right? Because I think about my experience. Because just last night, I was with some beautiful sisters, and two of them are working on their degrees. So we were talking about that process. And so
Wow.
I know that that community is needed, which is why you're creating it because you know it's needed, because it's a
Mhm.
solution to a problem that's out there.
Yes, absolutely.
And so you all please check the show notes, the description box. I will have Dr. information so you can stay connected. And when she drops that membership community and that's something that speaks to you, I want you to join
Mhm.
and just stay connected with her on the things that she's doing through her businesses. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Phyllis, so much. This was
You're
so,
so welcome. So welcome. Thank you.
you're welcome. And everybody, thank you so much. And until next time, peace.